The Fusion Link Festival is almost here, starting on May 19th, but I don't think you really want to use these loner decks. While they're not necessarily the worst, like they do have Ashes and Imperms, thankfully, if you're going to play Unchained, you don't want to be playing Street Patrol or 3 copies of Wailing, for example. So these decks, they are usable, they could be fun to experiment with, but if you're just looking to grind through the gems, I'm going to show you a very nice and easy way that you can do this on a budget. And utilize some of the cards you already have, like your ultra rares that you've invested into, in order to make it very effective. If you haven't already, I do really recommend that you invest in 3 copies of the Salamangreat structure deck. It is, a constant deck that is always viable in events most of the time, and I can't tell you how much value I've gotten off of this structure deck alone. If you watch any of my previous videos, the Burning Spirit structure deck, has paid back its investment tenfold, right? It's going to cost you 1,500 gems to buy 3 copies of this structure deck here. You'll get 3 copies of everything in it, and it forms the basis of a very important core for the Salamangreat deck, saving you a ton of super rare and ultra rare crafting points to get some very powerful cards, especially since in May of 2024 we just got more Salamangreat support. I'm going to show you how you can build this deck for that 1,500 gems on those 3 structure decks. If you already have them or haven't purchased them yet and you're looking to build a good deck for this event, what we're going to do is put together the Salamangreat package off of that structure deck and then show you what other options you can use. So when you're building Salamangreat, you generally want 1 counter trap because this is technically searchable. You can opt for 1 or 2 rage, in my opinion. You want 3 circle, and again, all of this, everything I'm putting in here comes in the structure deck. You can opt for 1 or 2 will. This is a decent extender actually if you get interrupted. You only need 1 copy of the field spell because that's searchable off of this card, Balinks, which you're going to put 3 into your extra deck along with 3 Sunlight Wolves. You could opt, the higher end versions don't play Heat Leo anymore, but since this is a budget version, we're going to opt to put 2 in there, and I'll explain why or why not you may want to include that. As a budget option, you could technically put in Mirror, but I'm going to opt to skip it for now. You want 3 copies of Spinny, 3 copies of Gazelle, 1 Foul, which again, you can opt to cut if you're playing a higher end version, 1 Jack, 1 Falco, and then moving on here, we want 3 copies of Foxy. The Mole, again, you can play a copy if you want, if you're on a really budget version, but we're going to skip it. Salamangreat of Fire is one of the new cards that came out in the recent May pack. I do recommend that you get 1, or if you probably will open this pack because you want SP Little Knights or just some stuff in there. But overall, I do think that if you don't have this ultra rare and you want to play Salamangreat, it is a very nice card to grab. Where is it? Right here. So again, you're probably opening this pack because you want SP Little Knight, you may want the Horus card. So if you end up getting this, don't dismantle it. Just keep 1 copy. If you don't have it, you don't necessarily need to play it. And so for right now, we're going to skip adding it in, but I'll talk about why it's important in just a second. So moving on here. This is a super rare, so it shouldn't really take anything to craft. This also comes in the new pack though, so again, you probably have multiple copies of this if you've opened the new pack, and just keep 1. You may or may not want to play this. The reason why this is actually kind of good is because if you do have the Raging Phoenix, you can search it very easily, or again, you can dump it and get it back off, dump it off of the Gazelle and get it back off of the Sunlight Wolf. But this card, it's a decent card, but you can opt to not include it if you want, if you're going on a super budget version. We're not going to include the Pyro Phoenix because again, this does not come in the structure deck. But I think again, if you don't have the Weasel, again, it comes in that new May pack, so you should have at least 1, but it's just a rare, so it takes nothing to craft. So this is the basis of your Salamangreat package from the structure deck. Other things that you get out of the structure deck that's really good value is the 2 Signet Minings. Well, you get 3, but it's since been semi-limited for some reason. I guess Math Mech is just too powerful. And I would opt to put in 3 Lady Debug if you don't have 3 Salamangreat of Fire. So there's 2 key differences here, and I'll try to explain them. But why you would want to use 3 of this and 0 of this is if you were really focused on a fire extra deck, right? So, and the main reason is because you would want to use Promethean Princess, which you can use under either of these, but if you use Lady Debug and search for Gazelle, and then you link Lady Debug into Balinks, you still can't trigger your Gazelle until a Salamangreat goes to the graveyard. Whereas if you normal summon Salamangreat of Fire and then search out the Gazelle, because they do the same thing. Basically, they search Gazelle, right? This one searches a level 3 or lower Cybers. This one searches for a level 4 or lower Salamangreat monster. 99% of the time, if you don't have Gazelle in your hand already, that's what you're searching for. As soon as you link this off into Bailings, because they both go into Bailings here, this does trigger the Gazelle that you got to your hand. So if you see Salamangreat of Fire, you summon it, you search your Gazelle, you link it into Bailings down here, that triggers your Gazelle to special summon onto the field. Whereas if you summon Lady Debug, search for the Gazelle, link it into Bailings, you don't trigger your Gazelle, you need another way to trigger the Gazelle. So that's the trade-off that you get there. This card isn't necessarily bad because, again, if you use this, you're not locked into fire. Whereas if you use Salamangreat of Fire, it says here, once you use the effect, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except fire monsters. Why this is relevant is because, like I said, if you have the Promethean Princess, that's fine because this card, the lock for fire works with Promethean Princess and she's a fire. But if you use Lady Debug, you can opt to use things like Transcode Talker because this is an Earth Cyberse, not a fire. And you can use something like a Splash Mage. So these are, again, super rares. Hopefully you can craft these. They're pretty generic, very good Cybers staples that if you ever play a Cybers deck like Mathmech, Marincess, Salamangreats, etc., you probably use these anyways. And then it allows you to also kind of go into access code as well. Whereas Salamangreat of Fire won't allow you to go through these lines. So these are the old lines for Salamangreat. Where you would really focus on this fire package with Salamangreat of Fire is, again, if you opted to not include this kind of non-fire Cybers package, so you don't really go into the Transcode, Splash Mage, access code line, and you look to go into this Salamangreat Raging Phoenix, which is a new card we just got in May. So if you have these, you could do that, but again, since we're kind of a budget option, we can just go with the Lady Debugs. You don't even need to play this technically, but since I have it, I would include it in my version. But, Access Code is a card that you probably have crafted for any other deck. It's a generically very powerful card, a game ender, right? An OTK option, etc. And unfortunately, Update Jammer should be illegal for this event. It usually is illegal for most events here. You can see it's been banned. It's just too powerful to OTK with, I guess. But this is a decent core basis. Again, if you don't have Promethean Princess, you don't have to opt to include it because if you're going with the Lady Debug line, which again, this card comes in the structure deck, it's very budget friendly. So all in all, the only cards that are not in the starter deck, Splash Mage, Transcode, and Access Code. And again, you don't necessarily even need to play those. You can just focus on this line here for your extra deck. And these cards, combined with everything else you're able to spam the board with, should be able to put enough damage on board to go for game. But from there, you can opt to tech out the deck however you want. So again, this is where building your own custom deck trumps using those loaner decks. And since I have hand traps crafted for any deck that I use, all right, I can put in my 3 Veilers, I can put in my 3 Ash Blossom, I can put in my 3 Imperms, I can put in the Talents. Unfortunately, Called Bys and Designators are banned for this event, so is IP and Little Knight. But Nibiru, I think, will be pretty strong. If you go up against any other link-based strategy, Nibiru will absolutely be a devastating hand trap. Some fusion decks can play around it, like Chimera can play around Nibiru pretty well. But, just like that, I fleshed out a very powerful deck. I've got a lot of non-engine to disrupt my opponent, and I've got my core engine ready to go. And then however you want to tech out your extra deck is totally up to you, again, depending on what staples and stuff you have and or what lines of play you want to go with. So the last card here would probably be my Salamangreat of Fire. But again, if you're not playing that and you're not locking yourself into fire, you can opt to play some non-fire Cybers monsters, so that again you can climb into those OTK lines or very powerful end boss monster lines. So what I would also include is a Decode Talker Heat Soul. So this also comes in the structure deck. So again, just amazing value. And if you do have Promethean Princess, the nice thing is like Promethean Princess can bring back any fire monster, so that includes like the Decode Talker Heat Soul. So this can bring back the Heat Soul, and so could Transcode, which is kind of cool. So again, a couple of interesting lines that you can use here. But just like that, you can see that my extra deck is filled out with cards I already have. If you have a Snake Eye deck, you obviously have Promethean Princess, for example. So you have a very powerful deck that's, if you don't have the Salamangreat structure, only costs you 1,500 gems. But like I said, you don't necessarily need to use Promethean Princess and all these other different extenders. You can go on a straight Cybers extra deck. So you can go Link, filter by Cybers, and see what options are available to you here that you want to use. There's a couple of different ways to do it, but overall very budget friendly while making sure that you can play some of the very high value cards that you hopefully already own in terms of staples. Anyways, let me know if you want to see anything else with this deck, but that's going to wrap up the deck profile portion. Thank you if you made it this far. Quantum is out.